There are two different RPGs with tactics-style combat that are heavily influenced by Persona. One of them has already been released this year in the 100 line Last Defense Academy, and one will be releasing later in the year called Demonschool. They both play out in different ways, one having more visual novel stylings to it, and the other leaning more towards a traditional JRPG style of movement around the world. So, let's take a look at the second one, Demonschool. Demonschool definitely does nothing to hide its influences, which I'm personally very happy with because it looks fantastic. For those that have only been fans of Persona since Persona 3, you might not know that this actually looks a lot like some of the early Persona games, especially the two Persona 2 games. Yes, there were two Persona 2 games, one which didn't release in North America, but let's get back to Demonschool. The big difference is in the combat. Combat plays out on a grid, but isn't necessarily the tactical combat you might find in games like Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics. In Demonschool, it plays out a bit more like chess. You move your characters to attack by running into the enemies, but you also have characters that don't attack, that just heal your characters, and you also have characters that give your attacking character buffs. Those are just the basics, though. Each one of your 15 different characters has their own abilities that change the way combat plays out and allows them to move around enemies, push them into places that allow you to do more damage. Outside of combat, you're free to set up a schedule for your team that enhances their skills and gets them more abilities. You can also pursue relationships with various characters, and the better your relationships are, romantic or otherwise, the better your team works together. There are also a variety of different things to do outside of that, with a bunch of different mini games to explore. You can even do karaoke. So, needless to say, fans of Persona should definitely keep a watch on this one. It seems like it's going to be great. It'll be available on all modern consoles and on PC on November the 19th, later this year, 2025. The 100 line Last Defense Academy has kind of been picking up steam as more and more people play it this year. One of the things that caught my eye is that this is partially developed by Media Vision, who used to make the Wild Arms series and more recently Valkyria Chronicles. The 100 line plays out partially in visual novel style scenes and in a tactical combat system. This combat system is a bit more similar to the Final Fantasy Tactics style combat system, but there are some pretty big differences still. For example, action points are shared between your units, so you have to think about how you're moving them all during the action phase. If you run out, one of your units are in a bad spot, they might get knocked out. There are also waves of enemies that you're dealing with in a lot of cases, and you have specific objectives that you need to keep in mind. So you might be defending a specific point, or you might have to defeat all the enemies or a specific leader. Some of that is similar to Final Fantasy Tactics, but some of it's a bit different. Outside of combat, it plays out similarly to Persona, but a bit more in a visual novel style. There is some exploring through the school, but there's a ton of dialogue with various characters, so if you're someone that doesn't enjoy a ton of dialogue, this might be a bit of a problem for you, unless you plan on skipping a ton of the game. But there's even more to this game. There's also a sort of exploration minigame that you'll take part in. It takes place on this board game-esque zone of exploration, and you'll encounter a ton of different things, including side stories, some shorter, lighter forms of the combat that aren't quite so involved as they might be in the main story events, or just events of all different kinds. And the main objective of the game is to make it through 100 days defending the academy, which makes the title make a lot more sense. The 100 line is currently available for purchase, so you don't have to wait, and it's on Nintendo Switch and PC. The big thing for both of these games that was also in the Persona series is the wide variety of activities which you can take part in. I think that's part of why Persona was so fun for me. You weren't just slogging around in a dungeon the whole time, and interacting with all of the different characters was a ton of fun, which is something that the 100 line apparently nails pretty well. There are a lot of people who have praised it for all the different characters. As for Demonschool, I suppose we'll have to see since it isn't out yet, but has a lot of promise. It's looking good, and the characters are very interesting from what I've seen. For fans of Danganronpa and Zero Escape, 100 line is basically a no-brainer. It does play out differently than those games, but a lot of the things that people loved in the style and the character writing is in 100 Line. I'm just happy that we're getting new games in this style from different developers. The future of Persona isn't perfectly clear because the developer went through some pretty big changes recently. Persona 6 could be quite different from the last 3 games. Luckily, we're getting some remakes. But with games like the 100 Line and Demonschool, I'm not so worried that we won't see anything like Persona again, regardless of how all of that shakes out. For more videos like this about RPGs of all different kinds, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.